Alright, this is my commander deck tech of Krenko Mob Boss. I still cannot get this camera to focus for whatever reason. Whoa, manga. Oh, there we go. Oh, no. Oh, oh. Nope. Yep, nope. Please? Whatever. Alright, it's fine. Alright. So, this is my deck tech of Krenko Mob Boss. So, Krenko Mob Boss is a 2 and 2 red. Okay, there we go. We got it. Okay, Krenko Mob Boss. Here we go. Nope. And it went. Oh my gosh. Anyways, 2 and 2 red for a 3/3 goblin. Tap it, add X1/1 red goblins, where X is the number of goblins you control. Krenko is a very mean commander, and I originally made this deck to have some sort of like casual tribal deck, but I learned very quickly that Krenko is not really a casual commander. But he's a lot of fun regardless. Makes games fast. Either you win fast or you die fast. So it's one of the two. All right. So first up on the creatures, we got Frenzied Goblin. So Frenzied Goblin is 1 red for a 1/1. Whenever Frenzied Goblin attacks, you can pay 1. If you do, target creature can't block this turn. Frenzied Goblin's very good. Just another goblin. Next up, we got Foundry Street Denzian, something. For 1 red, whenever another red creature enters the battlefield under your control, it gets +1/+0 until the end of turn. So when Krenko makes a bunch of red goblins, when you tap him, this guy gets a lot bigger. Pretty good. Next, we got one of the best goblins in the deck, Skirk Prospector. For 1 red, you get a 1/1 goblin. Sacrifice a goblin, add a red. So all the little guys that Krenko's making, you just sacrifice them as like sack fodder to play more spells and bigger things. Next up, we got Impulsive Pilferer. For 1 red, you get a goblin that whenever it dies, create a treasure token, and then it's got Encore. So for 4, you get to exile this creature, and you get a copy attacking each player, and then you sacrifice them at the end of turn. So for 4, you're gonna get 3 treasures. When it dies, you get treasure. So for one red mana and a goblin, you get a lot of value out of it. Next up, we got Goblin Bushwhacker. For 1 red, you get a 1/1. It has a kicker of red, so when it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, creatures you control gain +1/+0 and haste until the end of turn. So haste enabler, and it pumps the team. It's pretty good. You tap Krenko and give them all haste and +1/+0. Next up, we got Goblin Guide. This card will probably wind up coming out. It's not as great as I thought it would be, but it kind of fits the theme. For 1, you get a 2/2 with haste. Whenever it attacks, defending player reveals the top card of their library. If it's a land card, they put it into their hand. It's pretty good. Next up, we got Goblin Sledder. This card's very good. 1 red, sacrifice a goblin. Target creature gets +1/+1 to the end of turn. If people try to kill our goblins, we can just sacrifice them to the Goblin Sledder, make other goblins bigger. Or if they block our goblins, we can sacrifice the tokens to keep the ones we want alive. So, very good. Next up, we got Goblin Motivator. For 1 red, you get a 1/1. Tap it, target creature gains haste. This is usually used to give Krenko haste or something else that's good haste. More little dorky goblins to build up our goblin count. Next, we got Torch Courier. For 1 red, you get a 1/1 with haste. Sacrifice him, give target creature haste. Usually all these cards are going to go towards Krenko, just so you can play him and tap him immediately. Next up, Goblin Crater Maker. For 1 and a red, you get a 2/2. Pay 1, sacrifice Goblin Crater Maker. Choose 1. Goblin Crater Maker deals 2 damage to target creature, or destroy target colorless non-land permanent. So it's pretty funny when people play things like Ugin or something. You can just blow up Ugin just because you're like, my Crater Maker is just gonna run at him and blow up. I gotta sneeze. Please don't sneeze. Please don't sneeze. I think we're good. Can't get this thing to focus. But yeah, Crater Maker's pretty good. Also destroys artifacts. So next up, we got Mog War Marshal for 1 and a red with Echo. You get a 1/1 when it enters the battlefield or dies. Create a 1/1 red goblin creature token. So Echo's 2. If you don't pay the 2, he dies. So you're just gonna get more goblins entering essentially. Next up, we got Dark Dweller Oracle for 1 and a red. You get a 2/2 goblin, pay 1, sacrifice a creature, exile the top card of your library. You may play it this turn. It's essentially card draw. It's not really card draw, but it lets you have access to playing whatever cards they are, including a land. If you haven't played a land yet, you can play the land. Next up is one of our better goblins, Warren Instigator. For 2 red, you get a 1/1 double strike. Whenever Warren Instigator deals combat damage to a player, you can put a goblin card from your hand onto the battlefield. So because this card has double strike, when you hit them once, you get to put a goblin out, and then it hits them again, and then you get to put another goblin out. So you get 2 triggers from this guy. It's very good. Very, very good. Next up, we got Conspicuous Snoop. For double red, you get to play with the top card of your library revealed. You may cast goblin spells from the top of your library, so kind of card draw, just an extension of your hand, I guess. As long as the top card of your library is a goblin, Conspicuous Snoop has all activated abilities of that card. So that's kind of relevant. We mostly use him for the being able to cast off the top because it's kind of extending our hand. Next up, we got Goblin Instigator. So when it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 red goblin. Helps us go wide. Next, we got Goblin War Driver. For double red with Battle Cry, you get a 2/2. Pumps the team whenever he attacks. Makes all our 1/1 goblins into 2/1 goblins, which is relevant. Next up, we got Goblin Pile Driver. So it's got protection from blue, so it can't be blocked or targeted or dealt damage or enchanted by anything blue. Whenever it attacks, it gets +2/+0 for each other attacking goblin. So if any player is running like mono blue or anything with blue, this card gets massive, and it's very hard for them to deal with it. And usually with Krenko, we're attacking with like 10, 15 goblins. This dude's getting like +20, +30 whenever he attacks. Next up's Goblin Diplomats. So for 2, you get a 2/1. Tap it. Each creature attacks this turn if able. This helps the game move along. Makes it to where if people are trying to hold back, like value creatures that they don't want to attack with, we force them to attack. So it also makes it to where we can force people to attack into our army, where we just block a bunch of little tokens, and if they don't attack into us, they're attacking our opponents for us, and then leaves this card will basically leave that player open for us to be able to smack him with our army. So Goblin Diplomats is very good. Next up is Metallic Mimic. For 2, you get a 2/1 Shapeshifter. As it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. So in this case, we would do goblins. Metallic Mimic, it is the chosen type, so it's a goblin. Each other creature you control, the chosen type, enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. So all of the things that Krenko makes are now 2/2s instead of 1/1s. Next up, we got Crashing Drawbridge. So for 2, we get a Defender Wall. 0/4. Tap it. Creatures you control gain haste. So this enables, Krenko, if he makes like 30 goblins, tap the drawbridge, let all the goblins out. They all gain haste. So, it's kind of flavorful, and it's actually pretty good. Next up, we got Goblin Warchief. So for 1 double red, you get a 2/2. Goblins cost 1 less to cast a play, or goblins we play cost 1 less, and goblins we control have haste. So, enables Krenko's goblins to start swinging immediately. Also gives us a discount on all our goblins. Next up is Pashlik Mon. So for 3, you get a 2/2. Whenever Pashlik Mons or another goblin you control dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. Then we can pay 3 in a red, sacrifice a goblin, create 2 1/1 red goblins. So this is good. We go wide and they board wipe. We get to machine gun people down. Also helps us go a little wider. So, very good. Next up, we got Goblin Chieftain. So for 1 double red, we get a 2/2 goblin with haste. Other goblins you control have +1/+1 in haste. So, yet again, enables Krenko and makes all the things that Krenko creates have haste. Next up is one of our better goblins of the deck, Goblin Matron. So for 2 in a red, you get a 1/1 goblin that tutors for any goblin we want. So, certain situations will need haste, certain situations we're trying to go wide. It really just depends on the situation, but this card's very, very strong. Next up, we got Relic Robber. For 3, you get a 2/2. With haste, whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player creates a 0/1 Goblin Construct Artifact Creature token. With this creature can't attack or it can't block. And at the beginning of your upkeep, it deals 1 damage to you. So we give them a little thing that can't block. They can attack with it, but I mean, no one's really going to block it because it hits for 0. And then at the beginning of their upkeep, it just keeps pinging them. So if we hit them multiple times with this card, they're getting shocked or lightning bolted every turn. So, it's a pretty good card. Next up's one of our better goblins again, Krenko 10 Street Kingpin. This is usually what I tutor for with the Matron. It's kind of like a pseudo commander. So whenever he attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it, then create that number of 1/1 red goblin creature tokens equal to his power. So if we can pump him with like our team with goblins get +1/+1 or whatever, he just makes more and more goblins. Probably one of the better goblins in the deck, but this is usually what I tutor for. Next up, we got Simeon Spear God. We can exile from our hand to add a red. It's pseudo ramp. I mean, we get 1 red, but this helps us get Krenko out of turn earlier, or another problem goblin that we want out earlier. Next up is Hellrider. So for 2 and 2 red, you get a haste 3/3. Whenever a creature you control attacks, it deals 1 damage to the defending player. So this makes it to where they could be at 40 life, and we have 20 goblins, and if we swing with 20 of them, like they already took 20. So now, even if they block, it's like our creatures hit, so it doesn't really matter. But Hellrider is very strong and lets us get through. Next, we have Goblin Ringleader. So haste. This card's actually, I have a very strange opinion on it. I'm not really a fan from it. I usually don't hit goblins from it, which is kind of strange because it's Goblin Tribal. I've never had very good luck with this card, but I mean, I'm playing Goblin Tribal, so it wouldn't make much sense not to keep him in here. But 3 in red, you get a 2/2 haste. Whenever he enters the battlefield, reveal the top 4 cards of your library. Put all Goblin cards revealed this way into your hand, the rest on the bottom in any order. So, I mean, theoretically, you could play him and draw 4 Goblin cards off the top. But, I mean, like I said, maybe it's just my luck, but I never, ever hit goblins with this dude. Next up, we got Treasonous Ogre. So for 3 in a red, you get a 2/3 with Dethrone. Whenever it attacks a player with the highest life or tie for the highest life, it gets a +1/+1 counter on it. Pay 3 life, add 1 red to your mana pool. So this card goes pretty crazy. I mean, it's a steep cost, but you can dump your hand for like, 10, 15 life or whatever. Well, not 10, 15, like 15 to 30 life. You can dump your hand. Sometimes it's worth it, sometimes it's not. But usually when we're gonna do something like that, it's to end the game. Next, we got Torbran, Thane of Redfell. 1 in triple red for a 2/4. If a red source you control will deal damage to an opponent or a permanent that player controls, it deals 2+ that instead. This turns all of our little 1/1 goblins into 3/1s essentially. So Torbran's very, very good in this deck. Next, we have Ogre Battle Driver. So for 2 and 2 red, you get a 3/3. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, that creature gets +2/+2 in haste until the end of turn. So with Krenko, when he taps for 1/1, it becomes 3/1s with haste. So it's a very good card, and it's usually a game ender if he's out. Next, we got Siege Gang Commander. 3 in double red. You get a 2/2. Whenever it enters the battlefield, you create 3 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. You can pay 2 and slingshot a goblin at someone, and it deals 2 damage to any target. So in the background, you can kind of see like the catapult and the goblin flying in the air right there. It's very flavorful and it's very good. So you get to create a bunch of things to go wide, and then you can just slingshot goblins at people or things. Next up, we got Brash Taunter. So for 4 in a red, you get an indestructible 1/1. Whenever he is dealt damage, you get to shoot an opponent with that damage. You can also pay 2 in a red, and Brash Taunter fights another target creature. So if they have like a 10/10 out, you can just tap him to fight that and deal 10 to someone. And it doesn't even have to be to that player; it can be to whoever you want. So there's some politics where someone could swing at you with like a 20/20 on the ground, and you block it and shoot someone else for 20 if they're a problem. Brash Taunter is very strong. Lastly, in our creature department, we got Muxus Goblin Grandee. So for 4 and double red, you get a 4/4 legendary Goblin Noble. Whenever Goblin Grandee enters the battlefield, reveal the top 6 cards of your library. Put all Goblin creature cards converted mana cost 5 or less, which would be every Goblin but him, onto the battlefield, and the rest on the bottom in a random order. Whenever it attacks, it gets +1/+1 until the end of turn for each Goblin you control. So he becomes massive, and sometimes we get value, sometimes we don't, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. Alright, next we got our enchantments. Out of the way. First up, Goblin Oriflame. So for 1 and a red, you get an enchantment that says attacking creatures you control get +1/+0. It's very good. Like I said, makes our goblins that Krenko creates 2/1s instead of 1/1s, which is extremely relevant. Next up, we got Cavalcade of Calamity. Whenever creature you control power 1 or less attacks, it deals 1 damage to a planeswalker or that player that you're attacking. It's basically a Hell Rider. It's very strong. Next up, we got Blood Moon. This stops any 5-color decks of people being super greedy and crazy. Makes all their non-basic lands mountains, so they can get rid of this. It kind of slows them down, lets us build up our goblin board state. Lastly, in the enchantment department, we have Splinter Twin. This lets us copy any sort of non-legendary creature we want. I mean, I guess it could be legendary, but you'd have to sacrifice it. But this card lets us have some pretty strange interactions with things. If we create another goblin or the ogre guy who gives them all +2/+0, they all get +4/+0. So, there's a lot of cool interactions like that. Next up is our sorcery department. This card's not great, but it's just in here for flavor. We got Goblin Grenade. So for 1 red, you sacrifice a goblin in addition to cast it, and it deals 5 damage to our creature or player. This is strictly in here for flavor. I just like the art of the card, and it was back around when I started playing Magic in that era. Was when I first saw this card, and I was like, I really like this card. It's in here. Next up, we got Faithless Looting. For 1 red, draw 2 cards and discard 2 cards, and it's got Flashback. Let's just dig for whatever we're looking for. Next, we got Infernal Plunge. For 1 red, this additional cost, sacrifice a creature, add 3 red. This lets us get Krenko out turn 2. Very strong. Next, we have Vandal Blast. This card's absolutely insane. 1 red, destroy target artifact you don't control, and then you can pay 5 to overload it, destroy all artifacts you don't control. So you even got a little goblin running through, smashing all the artifacts, so it's pretty cool. Fits the whole theme of the deck. Next, we got Krenko's Command. So you get 2 1/1 goblins for 2. Helps us go wide. Same thing, Dragon Fodder. 2. You get 2 1/1 goblins. Don't know why I might. See, he just likes to either stay focused or unfocus. It's kind of irritating. Next up, we got Jessica's Will. So if you control your commander, you get both modes. Otherwise, you pick one. Usually, we're going to add the red from someone's hand. But you get to choose one, add red for each card in target opponent's hand, or exile the top 3 cards of your library. You get to play them this turn if you have your commander out. This card's very good. Usually someone who's playing blue or something has like 7+ cards in their hand at any given time, and this card is just absolutely insane. Especially if you get it off of like someone wheeling or something, then you're guaranteed to hit it, and then you just dump your hand. It's very good. Speaking of wheels, we got Wheel of Misfortune. So for 3, 2 and a red, each player chooses a number that secretly chooses a number. It's a lot of words and kind of confusing, but I'll just put it in plain English. Whoever picks the highest number takes that much damage and wheels. Whoever picks the lowest number or tied for the lowest number does not wheel, and then everyone in the middle gets to wheel as well. So highest number takes that much damage, lowest number, highest and tied for the highest and highest. Oh my god. Highest number chosen, and everyone else who picked that same number all takes that much damage and wheels. Lowest number and everyone tied for that does not do anything, and everyone in the middle also gets to wheel, but they get to wheel for free. So, holy crap, that was a tongue twister for no reason. Next up, we got Goblin War Party. So you get to choose one, create 3 1/1 red goblins, or creatures you control get +1/+1 in haste, or you can entwine it. This card's very good, especially late game. You just entwine it, and it gets really wild. Next up, we got more flavor in here. It's not very good, but it's just kind of a fun card. Explosion of Riches. So 5 in a red, draw a card, and then each other player may draw a card. Whenever a card is drawn this way, Explosion of Riches deals 5 damage to target opponent chosen at random among your opponents. So, it's got little goblins on it, so it fits the flavor, and, it's a lot of fun because then it's like everyone's thinking, well, who's going to take the hit? They're like, well, what if I can get away drawing this card? And then, sometimes one player takes 20 damage or, it's split up. But for me, it's just strictly, I don't care. It's not hurting me. And someone's guaranteed to take 5 because I'm going to draw from it. But, it's a very fun card, very flavorful. Next up, we got Blasphemous Act. This helps us out if we really need to, swing in with everything and then board wipe. If we're falling behind or they played some stuff that's really crazy, it just makes it to where we have a little bailout just in case. And usually it's 1 red because we're going wide, and then you also have other people playing creatures and stuff. Lastly, we got Banefire. So X in a red, it deals X damage to target creature or player. X is 5 or more, it can't be countered, and damage can't be prevented. After that, we got Dynacharge. So for 1 red, focus, no, yes, no. For 1 red, you get an instant. Target creature you control gets +2/+0, or you can overload it for 3. So for 2 in a red, overload. All your creatures get +2/+0, so it makes all your little 1/1 creatures 3 1s at instant speed. Very good. Next up, we got Desperate Ritual. Instant. For 2, you get 3 mana. Sometimes it's relevant, sometimes it's not. We're usually going to use it as a sorcery to, play things like Krenko, but still good. Next up, we got Massive Raid. So for 1 and 2 red, Massive Raid deals damage to target creature or player equal to the number of creatures you control. So someone has like a Spore Frog out, doesn't let us get through, like a Marin player recurring Spore Frog. This is another way to get around it. Next up, we got Thrill Possibility. Has additional cost to cast it. Discard a card, you get to draw 2. Helps us dig. And then lastly, in the instance, we got Abrade. Destroy an artifact or deal 3 damage to target creature. Versatile, very good. Helps us deal with problem artifacts or a creature that's pain in our butt. Next up, we got our artifacts. We got Expedition Map. This helps us tutor for key lands that we'll get into next. Or if we just need a mountain for whatever reason, you can just go grab it. Next, we got Skull Clamp. This is one of the better equipments in the deck. Or not equipment, better artifacts in the deck, just because, we're making a bunch of 1/1s and we can sacrifice them to draw more and draw more and draw more. And then, mono red, draw more cards than the blue player. So, very good. Next, we got Commander's Plate. This is to protect Krenko. Creature gets +3/+3 in protection from each color that it's not. So, Krenko has protection from everything but red. In Commander, from my experience, red and white are definitely the least popular colors to play. So, especially red. So, other than like Lightning Bolt or something, I don't really know what in red would really kill him other than that, or like Chaos Warp, but those are the only things that can now deal with him. So, Commander's Plate's very strong. Next up, we got Soul Ring, basic mana ramp. Next up, we got more flavor, Shrine of Burning Rage. I've never seen anyone play this card, but I used to play this back in Standard during Phyrexia, so it's kind of got a special place in my heart. So at the beginning of your upkeep, add a charge counter to Shrine of Burning Rage. Whenever you cast a red spell, add a counter to Shrine. So it's kind of like this shrine that's just like growing and growing with rage, and you're just going to explode and hit someone with it. So it's got a lot of flavor, but then you can pay 3 and it sacrifice it deals damage to target creature or player equal to the number of charge counters. So, it's mostly in here for flavor, but it's got a special place in my heart. That's why I use it. Next up, we got Lightning Greaves. So, equipped creature has haste and shroud. This is strictly to protect Krenko. I mean, unless like we can't play Krenko or there's like another creature that's just better in the moment, it's gonna be on Krenko. Next up, we got Rings of Brighthearth. This lets us double Krenko's ability or other creatures' abilities. This card is absolutely nuts with Krenko. You just get double activations, so it's first one goes through, then the second one sees all the ones that the first one saw, so it's pretty nuts. And lastly, in the artifacts, we got Staff of Domination. This with Krenko is absolutely nuts, especially if we have a lot of mana. Or Skirk Prospector. If we have Skirk Prospector, if we're making enough goblins, it's infinite. We can just go completely wide and kill everyone. But Staff of Domination, you pay 3 to play it. Pay 1, untap Staff. Pay 2, you gain a life. Pay 3, untap target creature, which is the one that we're going to be using. So it's mostly going to be in mode 1 and 3. So we pay 3 to untap Krenko, tap Krenko, pay 1 to untap Staff, pay 3 to untap Krenko. So you just loop that. And you can pay 5 to draw and pay 4 to tap a creature. Very versatile, very good with Krenko. Next up, we got the lands. So first land we got is the one that we're usually going to tutor for. It's called Westvale Abbey. So Westvale Abbey says tap it, add a generic to your mana pool, or you can pay 5, tap it, pay a life, put a 1/1 white and black human cleric onto the battlefield, or you can pay 5, sacrifice 5 creatures and transform it. So when Westvale Abbey is transformed, you get this. So you get a 9/7 flying lifelink, indestructible and haste. Sacking 5 creatures, nothing in a goblin deck. And then you get a 9/7 demon with flying, indestructible, haste, and lifelink. So when this flips, it's very problematic. Also, because we're playing Krenko, people are gonna probably start picking on us a little bit, which is totally understandable. But this helps us gain life from when people are starting to smack us. So, very good card. Next up, we got Scavenger Grounds. Sometimes we'll tutor for this as well. Taps out a generic, pay 2, sacrifice it, exile all cards from all graveyards. So it helps us keep graveyard decks in check. Next, we got War Room. Tapped out a generic, pay 3, tap it, pay 1 life because we're mono red, and then draw a card. Next, we got Dwarven Mine. When it enters tapped unless we control 3 or more mountains. It is also a mountain, so it counts towards it. Other mountains, sorry. So we have to have 3 other mountains for this to enter untapped. But usually we don't really care. Most of our stuff's 2 or 3 anyways, so we'll be able to play stuff. But when it enters, we get a 1/1 dwarf, so it helps us go a little more wide. And then after that, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30 mountains. But yeah, that's my Krenko Mob Boss deck list. Like I said, originally I wanted to make this a casual, tribal deck. But I quickly learned that goblins are not very they're not very nice. Games are if you're looking for a very fast game where, you're just killing people like turn 4, turn 5, this is definitely a deck for you. But some people don't really have a lot of fun playing against it. But I mean, if you can protect Krenko, you will kill people very fast, and games are usually very short if he stays out. So, but yeah, that's my Krenko Mob Boss deck list, and I hope you guys enjoyed it.